everyone, and welcome to Dutch Greybeard. When I started this channel, I did a couple of bookshelf tours. Those are wobbly videos that don't really give a good impression, in my opinion, of my book collection. So I decided to do another bookshelf tour, this time of my entire book collection. Now, I've seen a couple of booktubers do this as well, and then they highlight each book. I'm afraid I'm not going to be doing that because that would mean I have about 3,000 books to show you, and I think that would result in a video of 4 hours, 5 hours, I don't know, too long anyway. So, I'm going to show you my books. These are all the books of literature that I own, starting with the A, of course. They are in alphabetic order, and so every now and then I will pick up a book. There are many Dutch books, of course, as you can imagine, because I'm a Dutch guy. This is Jean M. Auel. I read this book ages ago when I was very young. She wrote an entire series, but I believe that the first book, I only have the first book here, the Dutch version of it. Love that book, really love that book. Here is my Paul Auster collection, starting here with his magnum opus, which I didn't like, and all the other books, which almost all of them I just love. On the second shelf, lots of Dutch, and I will try to avoid those when I want to highlight something. Is there anything I want to highlight from this shelf? No, I don't think there is. Stepping down. This is shelf number 3. This book, I just want to show it to you, is called Kanon en Fuga. It's a book from a very good friend of mine, Jeroen Berghout. It's in Dutch, has not been translated into English yet, and he recently published his second novel, Beersbalkon. Very good. I can highly recommend it to the Dutch viewers. Another book that's very important here is The Magic Flute, which is about the opera by Mozart, and this is, as the cover says, a study about this opera, saying that it's an alchemical allegory. Very expensive words, but it's a very good book, and it came with the entire opera, the CDs. These are the CDs of the entire Zauberflöte. Beautiful publication. All right, stepping down again. These books, the Goddesses in Every Woman and Gods in Every Man by Jean Shinoda Bolen. Wonderful books, highly recommend those. I believe they are available in English, I'm quite sure they are. Or they had been available once. All right. Going down. As you can see, many of the books, the spines have been so bleached by the sun that you cannot even read what used to be on them. All right, this is mainly Dutch, I'm afraid. So let's skip that. Next, we start with an author. I've been telling about this author earlier. It's Jeroen Brouwers, and he is my absolute favorite author in my own language. I've got practically all of his books. They are 2 shelves altogether. This is the first shelf. The video I did was about this book. These are letters between Jeroen Brouwers and Geert van Oorschot. He was a publisher and a writer. So here's more Jeroen Brouwers. just go through this reasonably fast because I could tell you everything I know about it, but I'm afraid my English viewers won't be able to read it because it's in Dutch. These are a couple of art books that are too high to be put up straight, so put them here. Here is some art as well. I've got my art book in a separate bookcase in my hallway, but here is some of it. All right, Leonardo. I love Leonardo. This was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 shelves in the first section. All right, this is Dutch, mainly Dutch. Here you can see my Edgar Cayce collection. I talked about Edgar Cayce earlier in an earlier video. All right, other books. Just passing through. If you see something of interest, you can pause the video and have a closer look at it. This is a Dutch author, Louis Couperus, of which I have many books. He mainly published in the very early 1900s, and he is a great author, just a great author. All right, continuing. This is a book published by my wife or girlfriend, Loes van Dam. She wrote an autobiographical book about her experiences of a burnout, a huge burnout. This is The Divine Comedy in Dutch, Dante. Wonderful book, of course. We're at the D, Dickens. This is one of the few Dickenses I have. They're not in the right order, I see. Well, anyway, I've got some more Dickens, don't know where he is. I believe this is all Dutch. This is translated from Italian, Umberto Eco. Read most of his novels. I believe these are all of his, I'm not quite sure, most of his novels, let's put it that way. All right, the next shelf. Oh, here's more Eco. You see, they're not really in good alphabetic order. Not that very important. This is the jacket of a book I'm reading, the biography of Erasmus. A great Dutch thinker who I've always been interested in. Here are some books by Erasmus. Very interesting writer and thinker. More a thinker than, well, he was a writer, of course, but. This is Euripides, how do you say that in English? Euripides? I don't know, I'm not quite sure. A Greek playwright. William Faulkner, I love. This is Malcolm Gladwell, I love his books. His other books are in another spot somewhere here. Gustave Flaubert, over here. And over here, these are most books with letters. Gustave Flaubert was an incredible writer of letters, and I think he was a better writer of letters than he was a novelist, but that's my modest opinion. All right, let's move on to the third section. This is nothing too important. Oh, here's more Malcolm Gladwell. I've made a bit of a mess of the order in which these books are kept at the moment. All right. This is the Faust by Wolfgang Goethe. Günter Grass, Der Blechtrommel. I don't know the English title. I'll put it in the screen somewhere here. This is my small grain green collection. I've got about 6 or 7 of them. This is Graham Hancock. He is a writer of history writer, but he doesn't shy away from controversial opinions. I like his books. I've got more of them, but well, as you may have realized by now, they're not in the correct order. All right, here is Maarten het Hart. As you can see, I've got quite a lot here. His works continue. He's a Dutch writer. I don't know if he's translated into English. He's an automatic author for me. Always buy his new books, and 9 out of 10 I enjoy very much. Robert Heinlein's biography. Another Dutch author who is very important to me, Willem Frederik Hermans. He passed away quite some time ago already. This is a biography about him and more of his novels. This is Herodotus, I believe he was Greek, I'm not quite sure, or Roman. Anyway, he was a history writer. I always found it very interesting to read history as close as possible to the source of when things happened. Very interesting. Susan Hill, love her work. She's sort of she started out as a novelist, a literature novelist, if I'm not mistaken. She's become more of a mystery writer. All right. Haven't read this one. Probably won't be reading that as well. It's a bit too thick. It's Hume. I once had the idea I was going to read all this, but I'm afraid that's not going to happen. Not now that I'm immersed in fantasy. Here we have, this is one of my very favorite authors, Eowyn Ivey. She is from Alaska, and this is her most famous book, The Snow Child. Beautiful, beautiful book. The second novel is quite different. Good, but different, let's put it that way. All right, mostly Dutch again. I read a lot about Krishnamurti. They're scattered all over the shelves, but very interesting person for me. James Joyce, Ulysses, never read it, probably never going to. Sorry. Okay. Then, the final shelf in this section. All right, nothing very important I have to say. I don't have to say very much about all of these books. Apart from that, 99% of them I have read at some point in my life. Moving on. Dutch writer Jacques Ruithoff, who used to be a very good friend of mine. He passed away quite some time ago already. Okay. Here you have my C.S. Lewis collection. The Chronicles of Narnia are in the other room, and other books by him. This is Kai Longfellow, my books by Kai Longfellow, an author whom I adore. She also passed away not so very long ago. This section here starts with my own books. I wrote a book about the Freemasonry in my own region, and well, these are my two novels, The Bridge to Nowhere and The Forgotten Muse. Some music. This is about Gustav Mahler, one of my favorite composers. Thomas Mann. A couple of books by Ian McEwan. I haven't read very much by him. These are the Anastasia books by Vladimir Maigre. bit of spiritual oriented books. They're nice, not very, very exceptionally good, but nice, just nice. All right. Book about Mozart. Very important composer. Not my favorite, but very important. I've done a video on these books, Dying to Be Me and What If This Is Heaven by Anita Morjani. They're important books to me. Here are Letters by Mozart. Then we go to another Dutch author who was very important in my own language, Harry Mulisch. And Walter Tully, another, he's old, an old school. Then we come to my Haruki Murakami collection. Here's a stack of his other books. I've got more books, but those are books I still want to read. All right. Mainly Dutch, translated from German or English. That was in the time that I didn't read English very well. Friedrich Nietzsche, I've got most of his books in a Dutch translation, but have only read just a few of them. That's an old plan of mine, to still read all of his works. He's one of my most admired philosophers. All right, final shelf in this section. Dutch, mainly Dutch. I don't know if this is very interesting for English-speaking viewers, but how well. We stopped here at the P of Connie Palmen, and we go to the hallway where we continue with the literature with Orhan Pamuk. Not really my favorite author, but I read just a couple of his books. This is one of my favorite authors. This is Neil Peart. He was the drummer of the rock group Rush. This is his most beautiful work, The Ghost Rider. This is all Dutch. Here's an author in English, finally something in English. Chaim Potok, one of my favorite authors, Jewish authors. I've read a lot of Jewish authors. Don't know why really. I was grown up in the Catholic religion. Here's my Marcel Proust collection in a Dutch translation, À la recherche de temps perdu. Philip Pullman. I've got other Philip Pullman in the fantasy section, but here's the other Pullmans I read. I love his work, really love his work. Here you have my Arthur Ransom collection of the Amazons and the Swallows. Nice books. Then we come to a Dutch author, again Gerard Reven, who was very important to me. This is the biography about him, and he published a lot of books with letters. He was a very prolific letter writer. There's all Gerard Reven. It's, as you can see, I read all of his works. This is Dutch again, I think. Yeah, mostly is Dutch. This is Don Miguel Ruiz, very important spiritual writer. Salman Rushdie, I read 2 of his novels, which didn't really appeal to me. But this book, Joseph Anton, which is sort of a telling of the fatwa, very impressive, very good book. Oliver Sacks, here's Oliver Sacks. I just read this one, his own autobiography, very, very nice. And I've got a couple of books I want to read by him. This is a Portuguese Nobel Prize winner. I read some Nobel Prize winners. This is José Saramago, all in Dutch, of course. I don't read Portuguese, unfortunately. What's this? This is Dutch. This is Scott Fitzgerald. Nothing much to say about that. You know, the few Shakespeare books I have, Shakespeare plays. And here I have the complete works by Shakespeare. This is one of those cheap editions I bought when I was very young. Did read quite a lot of it. A Dutch author. And this is Georges Simenon, detective writer from France, who was very prolific. More Simenon. Isaac Bashevis Singer, that's one of the other Jewish authors I am very enthusiastic about. He was a Nobel Prize winner as well. I love his works. They're so good. This is the biography of Dmitri Shostakovich, another of my favorite composers. This is a series of unfortunate events by Lemony Snicket. Very, very nice books. Not sure if I would recommend them though, but they're nice. All right. Then we come to Stendhal, French author. These are very, very readable books. They're old. I think it's 19th century. I'm not quite sure really, but they're very good. Stonehenge, one of my interests, the ancient stone circles. So these, I've put them in the S of stone. You see the stone circles. This is a very good book. Great Stone Circles of the North, Stonehenge. Well, anyway, that's one of my interests. The Incas, also one of my interests. All right. This is a Dutch author, Toon Tellegen. He writes about animals, sort of fairy tale-like, but they are for grown-up people. Very good books. Then the final shelf over here. Nothing much to say about this. All right, let's go to the final section of my literature. That's over here. This is Simon Vestdijk, very important Dutch author. More of Simon Vestdijk over here. This is the biography about him. Birds. I used to be a bird watcher. Still am a bird watcher, but not as fanatic as I used to be. Okay, Kurt Vonnegut. These are the only two I've read so far. Slaughterhouse-Five and Breakfast of Champions. If I go to the other side, these are the books I still want to read. Here is my other section of Vonnegut's. This is all I want to read of him someday. Alright, then the operas by Wagner, another favorite composer of mine. These are the books by Neil Donald Walsh that I've read so far. And then some other, this is a nice book, just very short. Tarka the Otter by Henry Williamson. Beautiful book, beautiful book. Alright, this is Raina Wynn, one of my favorite writers. She's British and these are good books. These are very good books. Then another automatic Dutch author of mine, Leon de Winter. I did a very small section in my Treasures of Reading series. I mentioned this one, Stad van de Honden, City of the Dogs. A masterpiece, nothing less than a masterpiece. Alright, nearing the end of the literature section. Paul de Wispelare, a Belgian author whom I really love. Jan Wolkers, Dutch author, who is not among us anymore. And then finally, almost there, Virginia Woolf. Very small section, Virginia Woolf. This is one of my favorite authors, Carlos Ruiz Zafón. I used to have all of his books, but lent them to people and never got those back. This is what's left. 4 books. I believe I had 8 or something. This is Marcus Zusak. I did a separate video on The Book Thief. And this is the final shelf. Finally, the Z. Nothing very much to say about this because it's all in Dutch. These books are all the books I wanted to read but have put on different shelves because I'll probably never get to them. Which, when I look at them again, really makes me sad that I probably won't ever be able to read these. All right, it's just the way it is. I bought way too much books than I can possibly read. Sounds familiar? All right, so you've seen those. And then here are the books I still want to read and probably one day will read. At least I haven't given up on these ones yet. I'll just browse through them. This is something I have tried to read. Life and Teaching, what's it called again? This is the Life and Teaching of the Masters of the Far East. I've tried reading this and DNF'd it. So this doesn't belong on this shelf, really. These are the books I still want to read. There are some Krishnamurtis. The Tao Te Ching started with this. I've got 4 different interpretations of the Tao Te Ching. Some more Don Miguel Ruiz, or his son also wrote books. Some Edgar Cayce, still want to read. These are the Oliver Sacks books I want to read. Seeing Voices, A Leg to Stand On, The Island of the Colorblind, and Uncle Tungsten. And Ayn Rand. I've had these books for ages and still haven't read them. Who knows? One day. Oh yes, this is my Nietzsche collection I told you about. All in Dutch, translated from German. I have not read these yet. Isn't that just terrible? Some of the Neil Donald Walsh I'm going to read. And those are the Kurt Vonnegut's I already showed you. This is my Haruki Murakami. I still want to read, and there's a new book which I'm going to read very, very soon. Hopefully, as soon as the paperback arrives, the paperback version, I'm going to read that. This is a biography. Michael White writes very readable biographies of historical figures, and this is his biography of Isaac Newton, and this is his biography of Leonardo da Vinci, and I like his writing, so I'll probably read that one someday. This is the biography of William Faulkner. I still want to read that one. This one I bought on a whim because it was very popular. This is a bookshelf that's been put away in in Dutch we call that een verdomhoekje. I don't know what the English word for that would be. They are not really interesting. These are my comic books. Not very interesting. These are all the books I bought during my travels in Europe and Russia and Turkey, and not very important to mention. Here are some books that display some of my interests or former interests. These is all about tulips. That was one of my interests at one point. These are all business-oriented books, which I bought mainly for my work. These all are books about the Gilles de la Tourette syndrome, which really was an interest of mine for a long time, still is really. And these are books about Freemasonry. And these are books that, some music books, some other stuff that is not really worth mentioning. So that's the least interesting section of my book collection. That almost rhymes. And now we're going to the thriller section in my living room. It's this small bookcase. It's not very much, but starting off with Will Adams. All of his books are good. Really, all of them are good. Steve Berry, same story there. All of his books are good. Then, these are the only two Dan Browns I've got. Strangely enough, I don't have his most famous book, The Da Vinci Code. These are less interesting. This is one of my favorite books, City of Dark Hearts. The author's name is James Conan, but in truth this is a collaboration between William Horwood and Helen Rappaport. She is a historian, he is a novelist, as you may know if you've seen my videos. David Gibbons, one of my favorites. In the back, Pompeii, Robert Harris, one of my all-time favorite thrillers. Really good, really good. More David Gibbons over there. One of the writers I found least impressive is Greg Loomis. He really writes too fast, too sloppy. That's Peter May, Scottish writer. He writes a lot about my most favorite island in the world, which is Harris Lewis. And he's just published a new novel that's set on that island, which I'm definitely going to get. Douglas Preston, Lincoln Child. Very good, very good. James Rollins. I believe I can call him my favorite thriller writer, which shows, if you can see how much I've read by him already. I've got some more left, but at the moment I'm not reading much thrillers anymore because I'm reading fantasy, as you know. This is more James Rollins. This is an absolutely recommendation for people who like thrillers set in the Christian world, the gospel truths. This was published before the Da Vinci Code, and I believe it's better. Paul Sussman, I have to point him out. He's a very good writer. He died way too soon. This is the thriller section TBR. That's Steve Berry and James Rollins. And I have this one, Stonehenge by Bernard Cornwell. Heard a lot of good things about this writer. And as I mentioned earlier, Stonehenge or stone circles are a very huge interest of mine, and I'm very curious what he does with this subject matter. Then we have some Greg Loomis, which I'll probably never be reading, some David Gibbons, and the final book Paul Sussman published while he was still alive. Haven't read this one yet, but I am going to. And this here is my collection of art books with a clock on top of it. The shelf has collapsed, I see now. These are heavy books, so it's all kinds of things. Books from museum. This is the Rijksmuseum exhibition of Van Gogh. These are his drawings and these are his paintings. There's all kinds of books about the pharaohs, the pyramids, Leonardo, of course. And then some other musea. This is the Uffizi in Florence in Italy. This is Madrid, the Thyssen-Bornemisza Museum. Anyway, this is all kinds of stuff. And Francis Bacon, really love his work. This is a Belgian painter in the Middle Ages, lived from 1400 till 1464. Rogier van der Weyden, just absolutely beautiful paintings. This is a book about Brunelleschi, the architect. He designed the dome of the cathedral in Florence. Modigliani, excellent painter. Chagall, Monet, well, all the well-known painters are here. This is a book about the Ness of Brodgar. That's an excavation site in Scotland, which I'm interested in. Right, another shelf. Piet Mondriaan, Johannes Vermeer, more Van Gogh, Giotto, Albrecht Dürer, very important painter and artist. Then this is more from Madrid, the biggest museum in Madrid. This is a history of art by Janssen, and this is the Gombrich, another history of art. These used to be the standard works about art history. Cathedrals, Michelangelo. And then on the bottom shelf we have more museum, the Prado Museum in Düsseldorf, and that's about it, I think. That's my art collection. Up until now, we've seen my bookshelves, which will probably more or less stay the same. They have stayed quite the same these past 2 years since I started reading fantasy. Now we're going to my study, the room where I write, where I record my videos, and here is more books, as you can see. These are the books you always see in the background of my videos. So I'm quite sure you're familiar with these books. This is a small bookcase which contains most of my sci-fi. This is Isaac Asimov, the Foundation series. I did a separate video on that one. I'm going to do a couple of more videos on Isaac Asimov. For instance, the Robot series, which I really enjoyed very much. Then we start with my Robert Heinlein. This is one part of it. These are mainly his juvenile books. And then there's more Heinlein, complete stack of them, and some story collections. Here is more Heinlein. This is Paul Sussman, which I haven't read anymore. This is one of the novels that was published after his death, and it seems to have been a early work of his. I'm curious about that one. This is the Space Trilogy, or whatever it's called, by C.S. Lewis. I like that one. Not very, very special, but I like that one. And these are books I still want to read. A couple of Heinleins, Arthur C. Clarke. All right. And then we finally come to the fantasy section. These are the books I have already read. Some of them are in Dutch, like the Richard Adams books over here, which I really enjoyed. Technically, this should be in the sci-fi section, I believe. Oh well. Genres, they blend, they mix, as you can see over here. Here we continue with Raymond T. Feist, Robin Hobb, then my complete William Horwood selection. Some of his books over here are considered literature instead of fantasy, but who cares? It's all William Horwood. I didn't want to separate his books any longer. This is the Broken Earth trilogy, N.K. Jemisin, which I absolutely loved. This is the Fiona Farr Tapestry, Guy Gavriel Kay. There's going to be read more Guy Gavriel Kay not very long from here. This is my entire Wheel of Time shelf. Have read them all except this one. This is, don't believe I'm going to read that one anymore. This is the, what's it called? The World of Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time. It's some sort of background information about the world. Very interesting, no doubt, but I have other priorities. Okay, and here is the second copy I had to buy of The Towers of Midnight. This is my normal copy, but this was a misprint, so I had to buy that one in order to be able to read the story. Then here is the Chronicles of Narnia I told you about. My Anne McCaffrey. This is George MacDonald, very ancient fantasy writer, which wasn't a very great success for me. Here is the beginning of my Discworld Reads, which continues over here. And there is Philip Pullman, his Dark Materials, and the Book of Dust. I'm so looking forward to the third book in this series. Don't know when it's going to be finished or published, but we'll find out sooner or later. Here starts my Brandon Sanderson part of everything I've read by him so far. More Brandon Sanderson. Then the Rhaeria Revelations, Michael J. Sullivan, great. And this is my Tolkien, starting with Tolkien. I didn't read this one, The Children of Húrin. Don't know if it's any good, but this is my other Tolkien books. And my normal book of The Lord of the Rings, my English one, I have it over here because at the moment I'm listening to the audio of it. Not very far yet. Where was I? Over here. This is Tolkien, my only Jenny words I've read so far, and that's it. Then my TBR for fantasy. There's Joe Abercrombie, First Law. These are the two books in the Red Rising saga that I still have to read. This is the Codex Alera by Jim Butcher. I must say I remember the names of the series now much better than when I made this bookshelf tour earlier on. This is the Greatcoats series by Sebastian de Castell. Nice. And this is the Empire series. As you can see, the first book, Daughter of Empires, is missing because I am reading that as we speak. Well, not as we speak, but I'm reading that at the moment. This is my second David Eddings series. I read the Belgariad, and this is the Malorian, if I'm not mistaken. I'm looking forward to that. I really liked the Belgariad. It was not mind-blowingly innovative, but it was just very nice to read. This is the first Stephen Erickson book of the Malazan Book of the Fallen, and here's the rest of them. I don't know whenever I will get to them. This is a book I've been juggling around for 2 years now, The Dreaming Tree by C.J. Cherryh, and I really want to start reading this. Don't know when that's going to happen though. Here we have David Gemmell. This is Legend. It's a bit jumbled, but this is David Gemmell over here. These are the 6 books I bought in his series. Don't know what it's called, the series really. But these are the first 6 books. Then I have John Gwynne, The Faithful and the Fallen series, starting with book 4321, so they're in the wrong order here. I'm going to read these. I'm not quite sure if he is going to be an author of mine because he's mainly known for his battle scenes, and as you may or may not know, that's not really my favorite subject in the fantasy genre. Then we have Robin Hobb, who I have a lot. I've bought everything by her, as you can see here, and here is the rest. And my next is going to be The Life Ship Traders. That's the first Robin Hobb I'm going to read. It's probably going to be next year, 2025. Here we have Ursula K. Le Guin, The Earthsea, the beautiful edition of the Earthsea books. I read the Earthsea books very long time ago. This is the Dutch version of the Earthsea books. I read these when I was very young and I really loved it. So I'm looking forward to rereading it in the original language. Then we have the Lycaeus trilogy by James Islington. I'm really looking forward to that because I hear so many good things on his second series, which starts with The Will of the Many, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm really looking forward to reading that. Then we have Redwall, of which I bought 6 to start with. I did start this one, but somehow I DNF'd it because other things got in the way, but I'm very looking forward to starting this series again. Here is my Guy Gavriel Kay. I still want to read and can't wait to get to, with A Song for Our Bon as the first one. Looking forward to that. Here we have the other 2 books so far published in the Gentleman's Bastard series. Scott Lynch really liked The Lies of Locke Lamora. I have 2 more George MacDonald's. Then we have George R.R. Martin, Game of Thrones. Haven't started this one yet. Don't know when I will. Somehow it's not high on my radar. Don't know why really, because I hear only good things about it. This is officially science fiction. Pegasus, the Pegasus series, I think it's called, I'm not sure. It's a trilogy by Anne McCaffrey. And here are all the Pern books I bought and really want to read. I'm very much looking forward to these. Here is the Discworld. Yes, I bought practically all of them. And now that I've read Mort, which I really enjoyed, I'm looking forward even more to going on with this series. Here is the Kingkiller Chronicles, very high on my list, as are many other books. Alright, here is R.A. Salvatore, The Legend of Drizzt, the first 3 books in the series. Yeah, well, I'm starting to sound like a broken record, but I really want to get reading that. This is the Mistborn Era 2 over there in the mass paperback. I just got the final one, the Lost Metal. And here, of course, is the 4th book in the Stormlight Archive and Dawnshard. Then we have Scythe, the Scythe books by Neil Schusterman. The Rhaeria Chronicles by Michael J. Sullivan. And here are the books by Jenny Williams, which I really want to start very soon. Broken record. What's here? This is a trilogy by Django Wexler, which I bought on a whim. It's YA, and well, why not? Could be very nice. Here is the Memory, Sorrow and Thorn, Tad Williams. Still haven't read them. Want to. Then that's Chris Wooding with The Amber Blade and the Wooden Casket. No, the Shadow Casket. And then we have Jenny Words to close off this video. Her complete Wars of Light and Shadow and the first trilogy she wrote, as well as Who Write Hell's Chasm and the Master, what's it called? The Master of Whitestorm. I'm going to read those first before I get to her Wars of Light and Shadow. But looking forward to that. All right. I'm a bit hoarse of talking to you, but this is the bookshelf tour I wanted to revamp a little. I wanted to make a new one because the old one is literally very old and not very nice to watch. it hasn't been watched for a long time by people. And I thought it was about time to make a new one so that people know where I come from as a reader. This gives you an idea. All right, that's it. Thank you very much for watching this video. Until we meet again at Dutch Greybeard.